Hello and welcome to Maxim Foods Inside Track. I hope you're all keeping well. Things have been quite exciting here in Australia. A lot of international guests. Just in Brisbane we've had Pink performing here. We've got Tay Tay down in Melbourne and Sydney just causing absolute hysteria. And Pearl Jam tickets go on sale on Friday. They'll be touring in November. So a lot of exciting things happening in Oz. Exciting things happening in the dairy industry as well. Let's take a look. Having a look at whole milk powder, so last night there was a negative result on the GDT of 1.8% after a pretty consistent upward trajectory over the last couple of months on whole milk powder. Demand has been positive. Middle East has been very active over the last couple of months. The composition of buyers changed a little bit last night. North Asia coming back after Chinese New Year. With milk flow sort of tapering off in New Zealand, albeit their shoulder's been quite healthy, but with less product coming onto the market or available in the next little while, we should see pricing remain relatively balanced. Having a look at skim milk powder. Skim milk powder has picked up in demand over the last couple of months, which has showed positive signs with European milk being below forecast. Things have remained firm in price in the EU, in the US, things stable as well. Demand for New Zealand and Australian skim has been quite healthy. The composition of the GDT changed a little last night with the Middle East buyers not present, but North and Southeast Asia did pick up in their volumes. So skim, once again, not a lot of excitement or news there, but we would predict a relatively stable outlook in the next 3 to 6 months. Having a look at butter fat, so there's been no surprise that butter remains relatively firm in the EU with dwindling or below forecasted milk coming into their new season. Supply hasn't been abundant, so pricing has remained firm. In the US, things relatively stable on butter fat as well, and in Australia and New Zealand, supply has been down, especially in New Zealand. And demand been relatively good, especially in North Asia. So it remains reasonably bullish on the butter side of things. With AMF, it rose 8% last night. It had been very much undervalued against 80% butter, so it was an expected rise. So both butter and AMF at same pricing right now. So you could say that AMF is still technically undervalued. So AMF may have a little way to go. Butter, it seems demand has stagnated a little at these higher prices. Will this burn off demand in the next month or so? Historically it has. However, shortage in supply may mean that it will continue to be quite consistent and firm in price. Having a look at whey and whey proteins, whey powders, reasonably firm as well. Demand picking up globally and supply remaining reasonably consistent. If you look at the protein side of things, WPC, we've seen after a real hike there in Q4 of last year, things have settled down a little bit. However, demand is still quite healthy. And supply is sketchy, so we probably see still an aggressive outlook or a firm outlook for WPC. WPI also quite bullish in the EU. Dwindling milk supply or below forecast milk supply will mean that supply will be tight and product still in good demand. So you would expect WPI to continue its bullish run or firm pricing for the next 3 to 6 months. Having a look at cheese, so if we look on a global scale in the US, milk down 0.5% year on year, so less milk about. However, demand has been reasonably fragile or a bit inconsistent, so it hasn't really lifted in pricing or cheese pricing in the US. If you look in the EU, a similar story. Lower milk prices has meant less milk and a less optimistic view for the new season ahead in terms of milk flow. So milk has been down, but once again demand on cheese reasonably fragile. So still a reasonably flat outlook in terms of EU cheese. If you look over this side of the globe, Australia and New Zealand, supply has been abundant. A lot of cheese being made last season in both Australia and New Zealand, and with inflationary pressure that demand just hasn't been there to mop up that supply. So cheese reasonably bearish in price for Australia and New Zealand. If inflationary pressures continue, there will be more pressure on cheese. However, coming into the winter months, there'll be less supply. So I think once we work through the stocks and inventory that both Australia and New Zealand have, we may see an uptick in cheese. When that is the big question. Thanks very much for listening to today's Inside Track. Keep well, and we'll see you again in a fortnight.